Here is our old Western style BB rifle that we are going to modify. Starting from left to right, we are going to add an orange tip for safety because we don't want anyone thinking we have a real rifle. And next, we will add the laser pointer. To trigger the pointer, we will need to modify the trigger and add a bit of feedback since the laser pointer is silent. Finally, we'll need to add a connection to the controller box. Very first thing we need to do is take this BB gun apart so we know what we're working with. Once it is all apart, we can see our inner workings and we can figure out where to start. I think the most interesting and fundamental place to start is the trigger. Without that working, nothing else really matters anyway. Using a very small switch, I was able to find the perfect spot for it. With a little bit of glue, the bottom fit perfectly and the trigger would press it without any modifications. Since that was easy, I wanted to remove the safety. This safety is a bit odd in that you have to cock back the hammer for it to fire. So I removed this safety by drilling out the center of the hammer. Now the trigger can be pulled without having to mess with the safety latch, which normally I wouldn't suggest doing, but since this can only fire a laser, I think we are okay. Finally, I did a quick test to ensure the button is making contact, and the trigger modification is complete. Next, we are moving to the laser and orange tip. At first I thought the laser would be mounted inside, so I aligned and mounted a laser where you would normally place a BB. It turns out, these inexpensive laser lenses aren't straight and neither is the barrel, so the crisp laser dot became a fuzzy dot and wouldn't even trigger our prototype target. So this proof of concept didn't work. The next logical place was to put the laser inside the orange tip we were making anyway. I drilled out the orange tip and did a quick test. The laser was horribly misaligned, but we were back to our crisp laser dot. To address the misalignment, we added adjustment screws to the tip so we could pivot the laser around and get it aligned perfectly. This ended up working really well, and we were able to get the sights aligned pretty decently. Since we are on a good path now, I added a quick disconnect to the laser just in case it burns out and we could replace it easily. Then we ran the power cable down the barrel past our little trigger switch into the stock area. Final step was to secure the laser to the barrel by screwing it into place. Now, for the part that I was dreading. I had no idea where I should mount this connector, so sorry for the blurry image. But in any case, I started drilling right near where the stock becomes hollow. This was a rather large hole and the plastic was really thick in this area. Then I drilled another hole to pass wires into the stock for feedback. I'm using an Aviation style connector where the connector screws together, making it really secure. Next, I soldered on the wire for the laser, trigger, and haptic feedback power and fed them through the stock and glued the connector into place. I'm happy with this location and I think it turned out better than I expected. Now for the final step, the haptic feedback. The stock area is fairly large and it should be easy to find something that can give a little kick when the laser is triggered. I had a door lock actuator, a large and small pinball actuator, and a large and small vibrating motor. The door actuator was the strongest, but it wouldn't fit into the stock area. The pinball actuators would be perfect, but the large one didn't fit, and the small one didn't have enough punch. The small vibrating motor was great and surprisingly strong, but I didn't have a good way to mount it in the stock. So that leaves us with the last and best option. This is the 12 volt 4200 RPM vibrating motor with a case that just so happens to fit perfectly in the stock. As you might be able to see, it does give a bit of feedback. Well, that's it for our BB rifle modifications. It is now ready to connect to our controller. Here's a sneak peek of the controller and the rifle connected to it. Things are getting more interesting now, so you won't want to miss the next video because we will be testing with real props.